welcome back to the Entrepreneurs Forum podcast. Today's guest is Michael Giordano, who I am very excited to meet thanks to the wonderful wide world of LinkedIn and a few other fantastic connections. He is a private wealth advisor with Williams Wealth Management and a financial contributor to WYFF News, where he hosts the weekly segment Mike on the Money, which honestly, how awesome is that? I think it's fantastic. He works with professionals who have done many of the quote unquote right things. They build careers, created income, accumulated assets, and checked all those magical, wonderful boxes that were important to them. His specialty, though, is also focusing on growing wealth, not just helping people use their money, but helping them to design the life that reflects their values, their priorities, and their visions for their future. Mike, welcome to the Entrepreneurs Forum podcast.
Gosh, that person, I want to meet that person that you just wrote that intro for.
It is fantastic. Diving into your information was really quite something special. So thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing what you do with the world, because it is very, very unique and very, very needed, because right off the bat, what stands out about you is your warmth and your engagement to understand and want to understand people, which I think is fantastic, especially when we start to talk about something that can be so personal as money.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. I appreciate you having me on. This is I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. I'm super excited. So now I have a whole bunch of questions, because everybody knows here that I am the talkative one. When it comes to money, was there a moment in your life when you realized that money alone wasn't going to be the answer?
Oh, I mean, I think, money's a funny thing because if you think about it, it's really just a resource. It's one of our resources, but because we can like count it, we have bank accounts and we can see it all, we put so much emphasis on that resource versus maybe like, okay, what's my health like, or what's my energy like, or how much time do I have, right? So we just put so much energy into it that I realized I mean, I'm one of four, so I got three siblings. You realize that you're always having to share, and sometimes you don't want to share, but you realize that in sharing, there's so much value added to community and being connected to other people that if you hoard everything to yourself, whether it's money or it's ice cream sandwiches, you're missing out on a lot of life. And when I realized that, it helped you be a more generous person and say money's important. We need to have enough to pay our bills and take care of things. Allow my son to buy 12 Spider-Man toys, but it's not everything.
Absolutely. I love that you mentioned that it's not everything. And I love that you mentioned that it's a resource, it's a tool. And I
Mhm.
think, especially in our culture, how quickly it can just be, just checking a box and like get as much as you possibly can, when really stopping to think about money and how we start to think about it differently. Absolutely. And health is totally at the top of our list. You
Mhm.
mentioned also in your work that your father introduced you early into investing. That is quite cool. What were those experiences like?
Well, you're taking me all the way back to middle school here.
I am.
I'm 46. I think Nintendo came out in 1988, 89-ish, right? And
Yes,
I'm in middle school, and my dream is to be just amazing at Super Mario Brothers, because then, like, the other kids in the school will be like, wow, Mike is incredible. I've never seen a phenom at video games this good. So that was my dream. So I said, okay, I'm going to go start mowing people's lawns. So I was mowing neighbors' lawns. I took an evening paper route in Pittsburgh. So I'm doing the paper route, and I'm making money. And my goal is buy Nintendo, buy Nintendo, buy Nintendo. My parents were kind of savvy. They just let me keep making money. And then right when I had the amount of money I needed to go buy Nintendo, they were like, you're not buying Nintendo. You're not buying anything that's going to have you glued to a TV, in which you're going to be missing out on the world because you're going to be sucked into this TV. And so that's when my dad introduced me to this company in which you could buy a share of stock. This is well before E-Trade and all of the online brokers. And so here you could buy a share of stock, and they had a list of companies you could buy from. And he's just kept talking to me about it. I had no interest in it, no interest. And then I finally agreed to go buy some stock. We bought a share of stock in Wendy's, and we bought a mutual fund. Uh, and then about a month later, I was going through the newspaper as I was delivering it, and I started seeing, oh my gosh, my Wendy's stock is up 1 3/8 dollars today. And I realized, wait a second, I just made money without having to actually work for Wendy's. And so it was a light bulb moment there, how powerful money can be at generating more money for you.
That is so cool. And I love that you grew up in the late 80s, early 90s. Thank you very
There you
much.
go.
Full on support. That is fantastic. I love that story, especially when you mentioned about delivering papers, because I know even when I was really young, I didn't do the same thing as investing, but I did do the same thing as you had a job. You had a
Yeah.
job at like 12 years old and you were starting to do stuff and starting to find a way to contribute beyond chores. It was something else. So I love that they really,
So much value in those summer jobs, those teenage jobs.
for sure, for sure. That is very, very cool. Was there ever a perhaps maybe a season or a very specific experience in your life where you noticed that your achievement and that your fulfillment didn't quite match the way that you had wanted?
Yeah, I mean, I think, my first career was in television. I was a sports reporter, sports anchor for like 12 years, in various different markets in the Southeast, and really enjoyed it. And had a lot of fun and won some awards and got to go to all kinds of really cool sporting events. But I recognized that covering sports all the time, every day, was a little bit like eating candy. And that candy tastes great, but if you eat it every day, you eat too much of it, eventually you either need more candy to still feel that rush, or you start getting a stomach ache and you go, I want to just repel from all candy, right? And I kind of felt the same thing. Growing up, I love sports, but when you start covering it every day and the sports schedules are dictating everything about your lifestyle, you start going, wait a second, maybe it's a little bit too much. And so I realized that even though this is I'm having an achievement in this career, I feel like I'm doing great things. You go out in the street and people recognize you from the career, wasn't necessarily giving me the kind of fulfillment that maybe I was looking for.
That is such a beautiful insight. I love that. And it's so true because when you really do get, when you start to shift your passion into the source that your now becomes your income, there is something that happens where that shift doesn't quite satisfy as much. I actually used to have a baking business. So I had a
Oh, wow.
bakery. And when you mentioned candy, I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, he's spot on. It just became
Too
a
many
little too.
cupcakes.
How about it? How about it? That is brilliant. I love that you mentioned it. Now, I know you have a lot of clients that you work with, and I know especially as you're deciding if you're going to work with a client, you ask them a number of questions. One of the questions I think that really stood out to me as I was looking into some of the things that you do, you ask them, is your wealth funding your priority or is it someone else's definition of success, which I think is wildly powerful.
Oh, I think especially in this day and age, we all have this compulsion to pick up the phone, go on our Instagram, see what everybody else's life looks like, and say, I got to do that.
Yeah.
Uh, unfortunately, right now I got four little kids, 6 and under, and so whatever I think, if I see somebody in Bora Bora, I might go, "Wow, I really want to go to Bora Bora," but it's not a realistic possibility right now for me. So it helps me in that regard. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think what you're trying to help people do is say, what do you want out of your life? And then how do you line up all your resources behind that? Your money, your health, your time, your energy, right? Make sure all of that stuff is in alignment with what you really want, as opposed to just saying, okay, I've made $1 million, I made $2 million, I got $3 million. Well, I got to go buy a beach house. So I got to go buy a lake house because my friends just bought a beach house or a lake house, or they just went to Bora Bora, or they just went to Costa Rica or Iceland. And I then have to do that. Now you're saying you're just chasing somebody else's dreams. And it's easy to do if you haven't really taken time to think about what do I really want out of life? And then start figuring out how you're going to get everything behind that.
I love that. Especially I think that's something that sets you apart from and this is where I definitely think your age is a massive advantage to having those years of experience versus somebody like 25 or 26 coming out of college and saying like, yeah, I do wealth management and they've been in it for a bit of time.
Yeah.
But to have that insight that says, do I really want this or is this what I'm just told that I want? And then you also mentioned about your health and your time and your other resources going into what does that individual and what does that family really want out of life, which I think is something so powerful. And it was certainly, at least to me, not in the narrative of the late 80s and 90s and early 2000s of when
That's
you
right.
were growing up. It was like you're doing da da da. It didn't really come into play to be much deeper until I actually got older, which again, another one for our age is always
That is right.
fantastic.
100%. I love that.
Especially when people talk about, oh, do you have enough? Did you do enough? Did you do enough? And that word I think gets definitely lost do you find that your definition of enough has changed and how you help people figure out what that looks like for them?
Yeah, I mean, the word enough, it's a really hard thing because you might feel like you have enough compared to certain people, and then all of a sudden you're in a different room and you're with different people, and now you feel like, oh my gosh, I need to chase what these people have, right? And so I think it's a really hard thing, and I'm impressed when I talk with clients who are like, I'm content. I love the way I'm living my life. I enjoy the hobbies, things that I geek out on. I'm not worried about chasing anything else. And I'm like, man, if everybody could bottle that mindset up, you just become it can allow you to have a more productive life because you can feel a lot more fulfilled. You can feel a lot more secure. And that allows you then to be, a better steward, I think, in the world because you're feeling more generous about things. You're not feeling like there's this scarcity mindset that I have to keep getting more and getting more, getting more.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially enough, I feel like enough is such a charged word. It's right up there with like worthiness and deserving, and then those are words to me that people really have to sit with, and they're not very easily defined as, some other words that might be very fluid in our language.
Mhm.
And you mentioned about somebody going for something but not really wanting it. Have you seen people try to do that frequently where they're like, go, go, go into this. And then all of a sudden they're like, I didn't even want it. Like, what was I doing?
Yeah, all the time. I
Oh,
mean, especially in today's world, where the markets just keep going higher, higher, higher. They're screaming higher. It's making people start going, wait a second, I thought I would hit a certain level of wealth at this age, and now I've hit it even before that. So now it's like maybe I'll hit even more and more and more. And you just start seeing and hearing stories. Like again, you go on your phone and it may have been in the past I talked to three or four people in a day, right? So I now have three or four other experiences. On here, I can see what 100 people are doing in about 5 minutes. And so, all of that stuff starts getting in your brain and you start going, wow, of those 100 people, like 99 or 100 of them are doing something more exciting than what I'm doing right now.
yeah.
And so it just makes you feel like you've got to do more and more. You've got to spend more money. If you're going to spend more money, you got to make more money. If I'm going to make more money, I got to work even harder. I got to even, I got to make a lot more sacrifices. So it just gets you on this rat race and this treadmill
Totally.
that perhaps you need to be on. But for a lot of people, they don't really need to be on it. And so it's trying to help them understand more of like, what is it that you truly want? And that means you got to sit with it and you got to say, not something that you want today, not something that you're hoping Amazon will deliver today, but something that you really want that you've spent months and months thinking about, and something that is going to give you sustainability for a long period of time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. I was surprised that you had mentioned that you noticed tons of people optimizing for pretty much something that might not be what they really want. And I find that at least for me, when I first sat down with what do I really want, it took me a while to really leaf through and to admit to myself that the things that I was told that I wanted, I didn't really want.
Yeah.
And that made a huge difference because then you're starting to really notice all this kind of inner talk going, well, what am I longing for? What's moving my soul? And then when you find it, you're, oh man, totally different world.
Yeah, you really need to pause though. What you're talking about there is reflecting and taking time to
Yeah.
reflect. And I think one of the challenges in our lives today is that there is no boredom, right? There is no time to just reflect. I remember when the smartphone came out, the iPhone came out, and somebody said, "This is great. Next time I go to the doctor's office, I'll never have to sit there bored waiting on the doctor to come out for 20 or 30 minutes. I'll always have something to read, somebody to text, whatever it is." And that can be a positive in certain situations, but the hard part is to do really deep, meaningful,
Thinking.
self-exploratory things. You need time to be bored a little bit and just let your mind kind of like be calm and think through what you really want.
Definitely, definitely. And I know for sure, at least for me, my phone, I did not get a phone until I got a driver's license.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
phones did not come into my life until I had that full on, hey, Lenora, you're 17 and you're officially a driver. So that is a beautiful point of it. We definitely know that phones don't let us be bored. They can become fillers for that boredom. But I love that you mentioned about boredom. Do you remember growing up in the 90s being like, God, I'm bored? I
Yeah.
haven't said that in years. So, but yes, being bored is a fantastic
It's a
thing because
good
it
thing.
does give you it gives you the time to reflect. I completely agree with this.
Yeah, it's great for creativity too.
It is. Especially now in 2026. What relation do you think most people have with money?
I think, it's hard for me to say how is the relationship with money different today than it was like 40 years ago, right?
Yeah.
But I think, generally, for most people, they're trying. They have two separate thoughts that are happening in their brain. One thought is, "This is all I need. I mean, I feel pretty content and all this stuff." And then the second thought is, "I see something, and all of a sudden, I want to chase something else." Right? And so they're constantly battling these two thoughts of, "I'm good. I'm not good. I'm good. I'm not good." And so I think then in that case, when they're thinking they're not good, that's where like money becomes a very superficial thing, and it's like I just got to get more because I got to get something that I just saw somebody else has, right? And when they're good, they're thinking about it more deeply, like, okay, I've got my bills taken care of. I'm able to put my kids through the kind of schooling they want. I've got my retirement plans. I'm saving enough for my future. All those kinds of things. And so I think there's just this, these two things in our head, and they're constantly battling for the bigger piece of space in our brain.
Completely. I don't, the conversations, especially with work that I do, inner voices are
Oh
my
yeah,
specialty and I love it. But you're right, there's always a conversation
yeah.
going on.
And you can tell I'm Italian because there's lots of hand movements and
Love it.
everything else.
It's
So
great. It's fantastic. Especially when your clients come to talk to you about wealth, what do you
yeah.
find they often end up talking about instead?
Oh, they talk about their life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they come in talking about their money, but really what they want to know is, can I enjoy my life? Can I continue to do what I want to do, live the way I want to live, and do it both today and in the future? And so you're trying to
Yeah.
make sure that the money fits those two things. But I mean, whether it's I'm talking to my wife or I'm talking to a client, most people are not that excited to talk about money for any extended period of time. It kind of stresses them
Mhm.
out a little bit. So people are trying to say, hey, you know what? Figure out the money for me. Let me talk about my life. And as I'm talking about my life, in my brain, I'm thinking about how much different things cost and, can we make the money work? And is the money, do they have enough money to do the things that they want to do? But what do
Yeah.
they want to talk about? They want to talk about their life. They want to talk about their kids. They want to talk about their adventures. They want to talk about their hobbies. They want to talk about all of the experiences that they want. And that's all of us. Our life is made up of experiences. You're not going to bed with your money. You can't eat your money, right? So your money is great for a lot of things, but all it is really a resource to help us experience the life that we really want.
Yeah, definitely. Do you find that your thoughts about money have shifted over, especially even from like your 20s to your 30s and then your 30s to your 40s?
Oh, without doubt. As I was telling you, I didn't get married until I was almost 40. Had my first child at 40. Now I got four. I used to think of money in my own time frame, my own life. I'm 46 now, so hopefully I haven't hit yet the halfway point. Yes, fingers crossed. I mean, we're all going to live past 100. AI is going to solve all kinds of problems. But yeah, I mean, my hope is that that is the case. But like even that, having four children, I'm like, okay, am I taking care of all them? And think about their futures and what they need. And so even I start thinking about money beyond my own lifetime. So that's one shift I've had personally. Professionally, the shift has been simply that when I first got into this business, I thought this business was about money. I thought this business was all about money, and all you do is say, hey, the right financial move to make is X, and so just do X. But what I didn't realize is every person's has a certain makeup, a certain personality, a certain framework about money that they've been taught since they were kids. And so you have to incorporate what's the right financial move to make with what's the right move that this person needs to make for their own personality. And you got to blend those two things together. And that piece is managing someone's personality is an even bigger piece than just the financials. And so that was the shift that I had to make professionally.
That is incredible. And definitely your money and personality, two totally different things.
Hmm.
It feels almost like, yes, you are an expert in finances, but it feels like you've also transitioned into being such a fantastic personal coach and mentor for people.
That's what this job is. So, I mean, whether it's me or the thousands of other advisors, the people that are doing the work well, that's
Yeah.
what they're doing is they're kind of helping coach and say, hey, these are some of the different plays that will work for your situation. Now, you tell me which one makes the most sense for your own personality, the one that you can live with, the one that feels right to you.
Yeah.
And you're constantly doing that through all different pieces of their portfolio, whether you're talking about their investments, or you're talking about their estate plans, or how we're thinking about tax planning or funding their kids' educations, or a client wanting to start a business, or any kind of like retirement hobbies they want to get into. You're just giving them different options and saying, okay, now you tell me what makes the most sense for your own situation, and then we'll work with that.
That is fantastic. I love that. For my last question, when it comes to success, what does success look like for you? How do you define it?
For me personally,
Yeah.
yeah, I think when I think about it, especially it's changed now that I got married, have kids. But so much of life is, are you enjoying things that you like to do with the people you like to be around, right? And so, love my family, love the kids. They, they're very young, and so they can be feisty and combative, but they're super sweet and loving, and so I want to spend a lot of time with them and spend quality time with them. And by quality time, I mean like uninterrupted time and time when I'm able to focus solely on them. And so to me, success is, okay, can you build a career in which you're able to help a lot of other people, you're able to financially be able to support your family and your friends, and then you're able to have that time to really enjoy with your family, with your friends, and be able to do both of those things simultaneously.
I love that. That is fantastic. And as we're recording this, I mentioned while we were off camera, happy almost Father's Day.
Well, thank
That
you.
is
I appreciate it.
fantastic.
I appreciate it. I will pass that along to my kids and tell them, and don't forget, guys.
Don't forget, everybody grab your crayons, except maybe the littlest one. Thank you so much, Mike, for spending time with us here today. I know for sure your contact information will be in the show notes. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners?
No, I mean, I think we try to do is help people either grow their wealth in the way they're looking for, or put together a plan that they can retire. And so I create a whole bunch of resources, and someone can go to mikeonthemoney.com, grab those resources. They're free. Have at it.
Yeah, I saw the website. It's gorgeous. And I love the clips of also the clips from when you're on the news. I think that's fantastic. And how you share is absolutely outstanding. So thank you for doing what you do and for helping people the way you do, because it really makes a difference.
You're welcome. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. To our listeners, thank you so much for spending time with us here on the podcast. Until next time, stay well.